All right, so I am waiting for parts and pieces, but I have started to work on this bike and take everything apart, clean things up. As I'm doing those things, or as I'm waiting for parts actually, the only main thing I'm really waiting for is a new floorboard, because this one's not all that bad, but it's cracked and broken right there. And to replace that piece, you've got to remove quite a few other pieces. So I don't want to put it all back together with the broken piece just so that I can start mocking up other stuff. So I'm trying to stay busy with the little things that I do or did on my first bike to make it faster, lighter weight, easier to ride better the way that I like it, things like that. So what I'm in the middle of right now is, you can see all of the brake cables and everything are detached. One, I'm replacing the brake lever that came with this bike just simply because it just shows some age. It's been out in the sun, whereas mine is in like brand new condition because I replaced mine with a master cylinder for the disc brake conversion. So I've got that whole thing brand new, so I'm just gonna put the one from my other bike on. But the main thing, the reason why I have all of the other cables disconnected is because I'm going to remove the linked brake system the same way that I did it on the first bike. So we have here the cable to the rear brake lever, or foot lever here. To remove this one, you basically just pull up on this lever and slide it back out of this little bracket here. And then you can angle it up, and then you can get the little cam and cable out of the holder there. There is a bracket here that sits behind the rectifier. It's kind of a pain in the ass to get to. So you do have to remove that to separate that, pull this out. The cable for the front brake that goes to the front wheel, that's linked from the foot brake, goes right here, and that is mounted to a little hole right there. Again, kind of a PETA to get to, so I recommend taking the bolts out of this little bracket on top of the fuel tank so that you can get behind this piece to get to that one little bolt so you can pull that cable out. Obviously, you have to take the side panels off and a little bit of everything else as well, but I really encourage anybody who's going to modify their Navi in any way to get familiar with the bike, taking it apart, and figuring out where everything is and where it goes and what's really necessary and what's not. So again, I'm going to take this out. I'm going to use one of these cables. I believe I'm going to use the rear cable. So I marked them. I just wrote on it with a Sharpie because if I want to reuse these, I can take these and polish them off. But I'm going to end up using the cable that was originally to the rear that goes up into this junction box. It doesn't fit into this little holder the way that the original one did. So what you have to do is you either have to drill this hole out a little bit larger, or use a large flathead screwdriver and carefully pry this open a little bit larger. And then the other cable that goes into this junction box will actually go right into here. And that's how I did it on the first bike. And then you can adjust the cable at the rear by the back wheel just like normal, and you have a great working foot brake. So that's what I'm gonna do. The main thing about being careful about bending this is if this breaks off, obviously this is a metal welded piece to the bike, it's gonna have to be re-welded if you break it. So I recommend like warming it up or drilling it out. Another guy I saw actually shaved down, sanded down basically this, but I just feel like that's pretty tedious, and if you're careful you can just bend it out pretty easily. I've already done the 12 volt, or excuse me, I always call it that, the AC to DC conversion using the add a circuit. So if you haven't watched my other video, it's just adding basically this, so it keeps the original 7.5 fuse to the original circuit going into there, and it makes the lights all not flicker. So of course I'm in the process of installing the Chimera U-Bomb bar from Steady Garage with Vortex clip-ons. The original throttle tube for this bike had been cut down, so I bought a Motion Pro throttle here and some new super cheap trackside grips for $6.99. They're just foam, but they're super comfortable and super cheap to replace when I decide I don't like them. But along with all that stuff, I did buy a projector retrofit headlight. I'm not happy with the glue that I did around it, but I just really wanted to get it test fit. It's gonna have a little bit of trouble in the back here, which you can't see obviously because it's put together, but the ballast and everything that plugs into that headlight, it has to have this still connected to the back side of it, and there's very little room back there. Other things that I'm gonna be doing maybe today or tomorrow is I have a new part from Steady Garage, another Chimera, beautiful little piece. Cover up the starter. But I'm gonna install that at some point today, probably on this bike. It is too cold and snowy for me to wanna go ride. So I'm just trying to stay busy making this one nice. But I did order new boots here just because, you know, this one's split open. I ordered new covers here because they were painted. So just slowly cleaning up the bike, making it like new or better than new again. But that's where we're at today. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, share the video with your friends if you like it. If you have any questions, need to know how the brakes work or how they're adjusted, I'll probably make another video about how the inside of this works and why the brakes, if you're gonna keep that system, why they need to be equally adjusted, and you can't just make one weak. You can't just weaken the front because then the rear doesn't work correctly. But I'll probably make another video for that. So thanks for watching. Happy Honda days. Okay, so I just finished taking the linked brakes apart and hooking up the rear brake. So this is the original cable from the foot pedal, and it pulls on this little bracket that pivots back and forth. So if you've only got one cable here that's tight and the other one is loose, like let's say you want the foot brake to only actuate the foot brake and you don't want to take all this apart, so you loosen up the front brake. If the front brake is loose, it puts this adjuster back here, meaning that when it pulls on the foot brake, it's pulling this cable from here, from where my pinky's at, from there all the way back, instead of from the center point back. And this cable here doesn't have any adjustment, so that can't be fixed. Adjusting the rear brake and making it tighter and making the front brake looser doesn't actually make the rear brake work better or work on its own. It actually makes the rear brake work poorly and the front brake linked part of it work even worse. So if you want the rear brake to work as a rear brake only, this is really the best way to do it. In the first part of the video, I did say that I used the original rear brake cable. That was wrong. I actually used the cable from this junction box that goes to the front wheel, but now it goes from here instead of to the front wheel, instead of the junction box, excuse me, it goes here, and then instead of from the junction box to there, I looped it up and it just goes right over the cylinder head, right over the intake manifold. And it's this cable right here. I apologize, my lighting in my garage is terrible, so I'm using a flashlight, but it comes right there. It goes behind this snorkel here for the CVT, and then it just goes through this loop into the cable stay there. I'm not using any of the original brackets and stuff. All of that's gone. It'll all go just to the side. And then I actually cut off this extra piece. And I'm using a Chimera from Steady Garage adjuster to make it super easy to adjust. I did shave that down a little bit. I'm gonna sand that down and probably remove the whole bracket and paint it, but the pin, I believe, has to go out behind the drum brake side. So the whole thing's gotta be disassembled, I think, to actually remove that. So I'm just gonna sand it down a little bit further and kind of polish it up for now. But now the rear brake only actuates, or the foot brake only actuates the rear brake. So just another one of those little things that you can do that frees up space. It gets rid of the junction box there, it gets rid of all the brackets, gets rid of extra cables. In the front here, when I hook up this cable, I will probably also cut the bottom of this off. And all those little things, for me, make the brakes work better and work the way that I want them to. And it also takes off a bit of weight off the bike. Obviously, any weight that you remove is gonna make the bike a little bit faster. If you want to keep the parking brake or the full-size lever on this side to get rid of the parking brake, obviously don't cut this piece off because you do need this extra bit for the parking brake. But I'm not using the parking brake. The other thing that I did is I'm disconnecting the kill switch on the kickstand. And this is going to be run to a switch that I'll hide somewhere, so I can use a secondary kill switch aside from the one on the handlebars to disable the bike. But that's just another portion of the little things that I do to the bike to make it a little bit faster and lighter weight and function a little bit better to my liking. This bike has already been like that since day one. I never rode this bike with the linked brakes ever. And I've actually not ridden this one yet either, but I did ride John Brum's bike, another member of the Navi group on Facebook. We swapped bikes and I let him ride this one at one point. So I have ridden a bike with linked brakes, but it is just not for me. So that's where we're at. Again, thanks for watching. Please subscribe.